Welcome back to the channel and a huge warm welcome to everyone who loves discovering the hidden stories behind everyday coins, because today we are diving deep into a story that sounds almost unbelievable at first, a simple 1974 1-cent coin, the same type of penny that millions of people have held, spent, or ignored for decades, yet under the right circumstances and with the right combination of rare errors, minting mistakes, and extraordinary possibilities, this humble copper coin has been whispered about in collecting circles as being worth as much as $43 million, and in this long deep dive we are going to explore exactly why a coin that once bought almost nothing could theoretically be valued at an amount that could change multiple generations of a family, and as you settle in and imagine holding a single penny that could be worth more than luxury mansions, private jets, or entire businesses, remember that the world of coin collecting is not just about metal and dates, but about history, human error, chance, and the incredible stories that emerge when all of those elements collide, because the 1974 1-cent coin sits at a fascinating crossroads in American minting history, a time when technology was improving but still imperfect, when massive quantities of coins were being produced to meet demand, and when even the smallest oversight could create a rarity that would echo through decades, and to understand why the 1974 penny has become the subject of such enormous valuation rumors, we must first understand the environment in which it was created, because the early 1970s were a period of transition for the United States Mint. Inflation was rising, metal prices were volatile, and the mint was under constant pressure to produce billions of coins quickly and efficiently, especially the 1-cent coin, which was used more than any other denomination in daily commerce, and when production numbers are that high, mistakes are not just possible, they are inevitable, and most of those mistakes are minor and go unnoticed, but once in a while, a mistake occurs that is so unusual, so dramatic, and so perfectly preserved that it becomes legendary, and the 1974 1-cent is linked to several categories of errors that collectors consider the holy grail, starting with the possibility of wrong planchet errors, because during this period the mint was still experimenting and dealing with leftover materials from previous years, and although the official composition of the 1974 penny was primarily copper, there have long been rumors and intense debates about whether a small number of 1974 cents were struck on experimental aluminum planchets or on planchets intended for other denominations, and if such a coin were confirmed, authenticated, and preserved in pristine condition, it would instantly become one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever known, because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most desirable mistakes in numismatics, especially when they involve materials that were never officially released into circulation, and the mere possibility that a 1974 penny could exist on an aluminum or foreign metal planchet has fueled decades of speculation, private searches, and even quiet investigations by collectors who believe that somewhere, perhaps in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or an inherited collection, such a coin still exists waiting to be discovered. And then there are the dramatic double die errors associated with some 1974 1-cent coins, because doubling occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives a misaligned impression during its creation, resulting in doubled lettering, numbers, or design elements that are clearly visible to the naked eye, and while minor doubling is relatively common, strong, well-defined double die obverse or reverse errors are extremely rare. And on a 1974 penny, such doubling could appear on the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," creating a bold visual effect that instantly sets the coin apart from billions of normal examples, and collectors pay enormous premiums for strong double dies because they represent a moment when the minting process literally slipped, capturing a mechanical mistake forever in metal, and when a double die is combined with exceptional condition, meaning the coin shows almost no wear, no damage, and original mint luster, the value can skyrocket beyond what most people would ever imagine for a penny, And the story becomes even more intense when we consider off-metal and transitional errors, because 1974 sits in a timeline where the Mint was actively studying alternatives to copper due to rising costs, and although aluminum cents were officially dated 1974 and struck experimentally, they were never released to the public, and most were supposedly recalled and destroyed. But numismatic history has repeatedly shown that when millions of objects are produced, even the most controlled recalls are never perfect, and the idea that a 1974 aluminum cent could have escaped into private hands has become one of the most tantalizing mysteries in U.S. coinage, because if such a coin were to surface today, authenticated beyond doubt by top grading services, it could easily command a price that reaches into the tens of millions, not just because of its rarity, but because of its historical significance as a coin that represents a path not taken in American currency. And then there are the possibilities of dramatic mint errors such as broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread outward and create an unusually wide and distorted appearance, or multiple strike errors where the coin is struck more than once, sometimes at different angles, creating ghostly overlapping images that look almost surreal. And while these errors can occur on many dates, the combination of such an error on a 1974 penny, especially if paired with other anomalies, pushes the coin into a category of extreme rarity, and collectors often say that value is not just about a single error, but about the stacking of errors, meaning that when multiple mistakes occur on the same coin, the odds of that happening are so astronomically low that the coin becomes almost unique, and uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value in numismatics, and beyond physical errors, the condition of the coin plays an enormous role, because a 1974 penny with a dramatic error that is heavily worn or damaged may still be valuable, but a similar coin in near-perfect or flawless condition can be worth exponentially more, because it suggests that the coin was preserved almost immediately after minting, possibly recognized as unusual from the moment it was made, and condition rarity is often overlooked by casual collectors, but it is one of the most powerful forces in determining price. And when people talk about a 1974 penny being worth $43 million, they are not talking about an average circulated coin. They are imagining a once-in-a-lifetime specimen that combines an ultra-rare error, an extraordinary backstory, and pristine preservation, authenticated by the most respected experts in the field. And the psychology of collectors also plays a huge role in these valuations, because high-end numismatics is driven by competition among wealthy collectors, museums, and institutions who want to own the best, the rarest, or the most historically important examples. And when two or more bidders with deep pockets desire the same unique coin, prices can escalate to levels that seem irrational to outsiders but make perfect sense within that elite circle. And the 1974 penny, especially one tied to the aluminum experiment or a confirmed wrong metal strike, would not just be a coin, it would be a symbol, a conversation piece, and a cornerstone of any world-class collection, and that symbolic value adds layers of worth beyond metal and rarity. And then there is the role of mystery and legend, because coins that are surrounded by unanswered questions often command higher interest and higher prices, and the idea that a $43 million penny might still be out there fuels treasure hunting excitement, inspiring people to check their change, sift through old collections, and learn about minting errors, and that widespread fascination keeps the story alive, increasing demand and awareness, which in turn supports higher valuations when a genuine example appears. And it is important to understand that many of these astronomical values are theoretical, representing what the right coin could achieve under perfect conditions at a major auction with global attention, rather than a guaranteed price for any 1974 penny. But in the world of collectibles, theoretical value often becomes real when the right buyer meets the right object at the right moment. Next. Today, because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you look at ordinary pocket change, especially if you have ever come across a worn brown penny dated 1973 with a small D mint mark under the date, because hidden within that unassuming copper coin is one of the most talked about and controversial stories in modern numismatics, a story that collectors, dealers, and treasure hunters whisper about. A story that claims a single 1973 D1 cent, struck in Denver and released quietly into circulation, could be worth as much as $23 million due to a perfect storm of minting errors, rare production mistakes, unusual transitional possibilities, and undocumented anomalies that challenge what we think we know about how coins are made. And as we dive deep into this mystery today, keep in mind that some of the greatest discoveries in coin collecting were made by ordinary people who never imagined that something so small could be worth so much, because the 1973 D penny sits at a fascinating crossroads in United States mint history, a time when equipment was aging, production was under extreme pressure, quality control was stretched thin, and experimental changes were quietly happening behind closed doors, creating the ideal environment for dramatic mint errors to slip through unnoticed. And to understand why a single example could command a value of $23 million, we first need to understand what makes the standard 1973 D cent so ordinary on the surface, because in normal condition it is a common Lincoln Memorial cent struck in copper alloy composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, weighing approximately 3.11 grams, produced in the hundreds of millions, and typically worth only 1 cent unless it is in pristine uncirculated condition. But within those massive production numbers lies the potential for catastrophic mistakes, and the first major error category that elevates this coin into the realm of legends is the possibility of a dramatic double die obverse, not the minor machine doubling that is commonly misunderstood by beginners, but a true hub double die created when the die itself was impressed more than once at slightly different angles during the hubbing process, resulting in bold, separated doubling on key design elements like the word Liberty, the date 1973, and the motto "In God We Trust." And if a 1973 D cent were discovered with strong, clearly defined doubled lettering, comparable to the famous 1972 doubled die but even more pronounced, its value would already skyrocket into the 6 or 7-figure range. But collectors believe that at least one example exists where this doubling is so extreme, so clean, and so perfectly preserved that it represents a unique die state never officially documented. And uniqueness alone in numismatics can multiply value exponentially, especially when paired with historical mystery, but the doubling theory is only the beginning. Because another possibility that pushes the 1973 D penny into the $23 million conversation is the idea of an off-metal or wrong planchet strike, and while most collectors associate transitional metal errors with the famous 1943 copper cent or the 1982 copper to zinc transition, fewer realize that the early 1970s were a time of experimentation and metal testing due to rising copper prices, and although aluminum cents are officially associated with 1974, there is long-standing speculation that experimental aluminum and bronze planchets may have been tested earlier, and if a 1973 D cent were struck on an unauthorized aluminum planchet or a foreign planchet intended for another denomination or country, especially if authenticated by metallurgical analysis, it would instantly become one of the rarest error coins in existence, because coins struck on the wrong metal reveal internal mint processes that were never meant to be seen by the public, and secrecy combined with rarity is a powerful driver of value. But even beyond metal composition, the 1973 D penny is rumored to exist with a spectacular off-center strike combined with a broad strike and retained cud, meaning the coin was struck far from center, spreading outward beyond the collar, while also retaining a large piece of the die that broke away during striking, creating a massive raised blob of metal on the surface. And when multiple major errors occur on a single coin, collectors refer to it as a compound error, and compound errors are exponentially rarer than single error coins, because the odds of several failures aligning during one strike are almost astronomical. But the story grows even deeper when we consider die deterioration and die clash errors, because the Denver Mint in 1973 was pushing dies well beyond their intended lifespan, resulting in heavy die cracks, rim breaks, and clash marks where obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of Lincoln's profile on the reverse or the Lincoln Memorial appearing faintly on the obverse. And while minor die cracks are common, a fully developed retained cut combined with dramatic clash marks on a 1973 descent would indicate a very late die state, possibly struck just before the die was pulled from service, making it a snapshot of minting failure frozen in time. But what truly elevates the hypothetical $23 million valuation is the possibility that a single known specimen combines all of these features at once: a double die obverse, an off-metal or anomalous alloy composition, a dramatic off-center or broad strike error, and severe die damage, all preserved in unusually high grade, because condition is everything, and most error coins are heavily circulated, damaged, or corroded. But if one example survived untouched, perhaps set aside by a mint employee, an early collector, or simply lost and rediscovered decades later, its value would defy conventional price guides, because at that level the coin is no longer compared to others, it becomes its own category, and value is determined by elite collectors competing for ownership of something that may never appear again. And beyond physical errors, there is also the shadowy realm of undocumented varieties, where subtle differences in mintmark placement, font thickness, or die polishing lines can reveal the use of experimental dies or hand-punched mint marks that were never recorded. And the D mint mark on 1973 cents was still punched into dies by hand, meaning no two are exactly alike, and a rare placement combined with other errors could further authenticate a unique die pairing. But what fuels public fascination most is the idea that such a coin could still be out there, sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten collection, because unlike ancient gold coins locked away in museums, the 1973 D penny was released into everyday circulation, handled by millions. Spent at grocery stores, dropped on sidewalks, and saved by children, and history has shown us that some of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found decades after their minting by people who were not looking for treasure at all. And as collectors continue to search rolls, estates, and inherited collections, the legend of the $23 million 1973 D cent continues to grow, not because it has been conclusively proven, but because it remains possible. And in the world of numismatics, possibility combined with evidence, expert testimony, and a single authenticated example is all it takes to rewrite history. So the next time you come across a 1973 penny with a D mint mark, do not dismiss it as spare change. Examine it carefully under magnification, check the weight, look for doubling, cracks, clashes, and unusual textures, because even if the odds are slim, the reward is life-changing, and stories like this remind us why coin collecting is not just about money, but about curiosity, history, and the thrill of discovery. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden value behind everyday objects and exploring the mysteries that still exist in plain sight, make sure you stay with this channel, because there are countless more stories like this waiting to be told, and you never know which one might lead you to the find of a lifetime. Last. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern penny legends that has captured collectors, casual treasure hunters, and dreamers alike, the 1986 D1 cent coin, a small copper-colored piece that most people would overlook without a second thought. Yet according to collectors, error specialists, and long-whispered rumors in the coin world, certain rare examples of this penny have been valued as high as $8 million because of a perfect storm of errors, mistakes, metal mysteries, and historical timing. And as we explore this story together, imagine for a moment that the next penny you find in your pocket or old jar could be hiding a life-changing secret, because the story of the 1986 D penny is not about a single simple mistake but about a chain reaction of possibilities that transformed an everyday coin into a legendary prize. To understand why this penny can be worth so much, we first have to step back into the mid-1980s, a time when the United States Mint was still adjusting to the massive change in penny composition that had begun in 1982, when copper pennies were replaced with copper-plated zinc cores to reduce costs. By 1986, the Mint had years of experience striking zinc pennies, yet that did not mean everything was perfect behind the scenes. In fact, the Denver Mint, marked by the D Mint mark on coins, was producing hundreds of millions of pennies at an incredible pace, and whenever production speed increases, the risk of errors increases with it. Machinery wears down, dies clash, planchets mix, plating processes fail, and quality control sometimes misses the rarest anomalies, which is exactly where the legend of the 1986 D penny begins to take shape. One of the most talked about possibilities is the existence of transitional metal errors. Even though copper planchets were officially phased out by 1982, leftover copper blanks were known to remain in mint facilities for years, occasionally getting trapped in machinery or storage bins, and if even a tiny number of these solid copper planchets were accidentally fed into the presses in 1986, the result would be a 1986 D penny struck on the wrong metal, instantly transforming it from a common coin worth 1 cent into a numismatic unicorn, because a genuine 1986 D penny struck on a solid copper planchet would weigh approximately 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams of copper-plated zinc, and such a coin would represent a direct violation of official mint specifications, making it incredibly rare, fiercely sought after, and potentially worth millions if preserved in top condition. But the metal mystery does not end there. Some collectors believe that experimental alloys were tested in small batches during the mid-80s, and while the Mint has never publicly confirmed experimental penny compositions for 1986, history shows that experimental planchets have slipped into circulation before, and the mere possibility of an undocumented alloy variation fuels speculation, driving values higher as collectors compete for the chance to own something that officially should not exist. Another major category of errors that pushes the 1986 D penny into the million-dollar conversation is the dramatic world of double dies, particularly double die obverse errors, where design elements such as the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile appear visibly doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process, unlike machine doubling, which is relatively common and less valuable. True double dies show strong separation and rounded secondary images, and if a dramatic double die obverse were discovered on a 1986 D penny, especially one with bold doubling visible to the naked eye, it would instantly become one of the most important modern double die cents ever found. Because strong double dies from the post-1980 era are far rarer than those from earlier decades, and rarity combined with collector demand is a powerful recipe for astronomical value. Then there are die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of opposing design elements on the coin. While minor die clashes are not uncommon, an extreme die clash showing clear outlines of Lincoln's profile on the reverse or memorial details on the obverse would be exceptionally rare for a high mintage year like 1986, and when combined with other errors such as doubling or off metal strikes, the value multiplies exponentially. Speaking of off-metal strikes, another legendary possibility associated with the 1986 D penny is being struck on a foreign planchet. During the 80s, the Mint produced coins for other countries, and if a blank intended for a foreign coin made its way into the penny press, the result would be a penny with incorrect weight, color, thickness, and sometimes even an incomplete design due to size differences. These wrong planchet errors are among the most exciting finds in modern numismatics, and a confirmed 1986 D penny struck on a foreign planchet in pristine condition could command staggering prices, especially if the metal itself is valuable or the error is unique. Beyond planchet issues, striking errors also play a major role in the $8 million valuation narrative. Off-center strikes, where the design is shifted dramatically away from the center of the coin, can be valuable on their own, but when the date and mint mark remain fully visible while a large portion of the design is missing, the desirability skyrockets. Now imagine an extreme off-center 1986 D penny combined with a broad strike, where the coin was struck without a proper collar, causing it to spread wider than normal, producing a distorted oversized penny with a flattened rim. Such a visually dramatic error would be one of a kind, and collectors are known to pay enormous premiums for unique visually striking errors. Even more intriguing are multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once, sometimes at different angles, creating overlapping images that look almost surreal. A multiple struck 1986 D penny with rotating designs, partial blockage impressions, or capped die effects would be a showpiece in any advanced error collection, and the more complex and visually obvious the error, the higher the potential value. Another layer of intrigue comes from the quality of preservation, because condition is everything in the world of high-end coin collecting. An error coin in poor condition may be worth hundreds or thousands, but the same error in mint state or near perfect condition can be worth millions. If an extraordinary 1986 D error penny survived decades in circulation without significant wear, retaining sharp details, original luster, and minimal contact marks, it would be considered a miracle of preservation. And collectors pay for miracles. Certification also plays a critical role in unlocking such value. A coin must be authenticated and graded by a respected third-party grading service to achieve top dollar, and when a coin receives a high grade along with a rare error designation, it becomes a documented artifact rather than a rumor, fueling competitive bidding among wealthy collectors, museums, and investors. Another fascinating angle in the 1986 D penny story involves die deterioration and late-stage die state errors. As dies wear down, details become distorted, letters can appear mushy or stretched, and strange textures can form on the coin's surface. While minor die deterioration is common, extreme cases can create dramatic visual effects that are highly collectible, and if such deterioration is combined with other errors like doubling or misaligned dies, the resulting coin can be extraordinary. Then there is the controversial topic of missing or malformed mint marks. A genuine missing D mint mark on a 1986 penny would be controversial because mint marks were punched into the dies for that era, and while missing mint marks are extremely rare, a filled or weak mint mark that appears absent due to grease-filled dies can create confusion and speculation, and if proven to be a true mint error rather than post-mint damage,